Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac. I am your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca.
And it is so good to see your lovely face again on
You live with me.
I'm just saying, like on the video version of the podcast. This has been fun.
Nice.
Now, who you got with you?
Oh, this is my little bat buddy that I recently got. I haven't named him yet, but I'm thinking of Bryaxis.
Bryaxis. My goodness. What does that mean?
From Agatar, the little thing that lives in the library downstairs.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's a great idea. So, what's new since our last episode?
It's been a week.
Mm-hmm.
I got attacked from my garbage disposal in the sink.
And you won. You killed it.
Yeah, I did. It threw a fork at me.
It did.
But I made it. The fork did not. And neither did my cup, which will now hold my pins.
Yeah, it says "Pour me a cup." Yeah.
But yeah.
And as you can see, show us the spot where the handle broke off.
Casualties of war, I suppose.
The handle broke off. So, all right. Those of you with ADHD, specifically inattentive ADHD, you will understand this scenario. Becca was, she poured something down the garbage disposal. Then she walked away and she grabbed some other dishes to put in the sink. She forgot the garbage disposal was still running. And it caught hold of one of our daughter's small child-sized forks, and it threw that fork at my wife's face, and the rubber grip end ricocheted off of her forehead and onto the other side.
Thankfully not the sharp end.
Yes. I was mortified.
Four little marks right here.
Okay. I was mortified when she told me what had happened, because I was just so scared that she could have been hurt so easily.
I have a hard head.
But in the process, were you holding that cup when the
I put it in the sink I put it in the sink with other stuff, not thinking. And I mean, like, I must have been really out of it at that point, because you can hear the disposal. It's not like you can't hear it. I just completely forgot that it was on, or that it would do it. I don't know. I just didn't think about it, and I stuck stuff in there. And I think another spoon, like a regular spoon or something, I think it got trapped and started, freaking out. And I think it grabbed the handle and ripped it off.
Oh, okay.
And pieces of it went down into the garbage disposal, and now it doesn't work anymore.
Right. And we kind of went down a Google and YouTube rabbit hole, just trying to figure out, okay, how do you, how do you use the Allen head wrench to rotate the rotors inside to unjam it.
We learned some new things.
We learned a lot of new stuff, and it was jammed. And so we even disconnected it from its mounting, turned it upside down, tried to shake out whatever might be jamming up the tines inside of the disposal, but they were stuck. And so we just ordered a new disposal. I called my dad and I was like, here's what's going on with our disposal. He was like, He said, it ain't just stuck. There's something wrong with that motor. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, when I break something, I break it good.
There you go. If you're going to go big, go big or go home.
It got one last shot at me, so.
Right. The best guess I have is that there's like ceramic fragments that have gotten way down into the motor or something. So, because that's what was, when we first were pulling stuff out of there, it was small fragments of the ceramic from that coffee cup. And the moral of the story is the disposal is dead.
And also in the afterlife, Poe owes me money. So
correct. So that's what.
That's one of the few things that happened this week. Just one of the few. And
then that happened to be date night, and so we actually went to one of our favorite bookstores, where you originally got that coffee cup, and we were able to get a different. Yes, we were there. Let the record show. We were there to get a replacement Edgar Allan Poe coffee cup, which we did. But along the way, Rebecca also purchased 2 more stuffed animals, including Mr. Briaxis, who you see sitting in her lap.
Look, I had birthday money still, so.
Objection.
Your face is an objection. So anyway, but yeah, dealing with that, and then my daughter who did not want to go to school at all this week. Next week is our spring break, and so she's.
She knows.
Honestly, she needs a break, and I need a break from just taking her to school in the mornings because it is a fight. So,
yeah. So, I'm trying to think of what else has gone down.
The fun run was this week.
Yes, you attended the fun run, which
I was texting
not that fun
the whole time, and I was like, I am not waving a blue pop. I'm not doing it.
So y'all need to understand, when Becca is attending a social event, it's either me or a group text we have with some of our friends. Oh, excuse me. We're recording early in the morning, so if we're yawning, please forgive us. There will be a stream of consciousness of text messages. Becca will be describing her experience at this social gathering and her impressions and her sensations and how her hard drive is smoking as soon as she goes into a social situation.
Well, I'm also still recovering from that freaking zoo trip. I've been exhausted all week. I literally fell asleep on caffeine and Adderall yesterday. I'm like, what is life?
That's not an exaggeration.
I am so tired. I'm like, I think I'm at the point of like pre-burnout just from that one event.
Yes.
So I could use a break myself for like just going to things. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Story time. I escaped a religious cult 7 years ago. Without going into too much detail here, let me just say it was an extremely difficult journey. My mental health spiraled downhill, and I thankfully had enough presence of mind to seek out a therapist to work through what was going on with me. My therapist helped give me context to all the wild things I had walked away from. He was kind, patient, and guided me through what my new normal might look like. I had never had healthy boundaries in my life. Therapy helped show me that, as a result of being in a cult or a high control group, I had never fully become my own person. It's a shocking thing to learn at the age of 32. I learned how to communicate to the people around me what I was going to do, and more importantly, not do with my time, energy, and resources. BetterHelp is the sponsor of this episode, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. There's a journal inside the platform for personal reflection, and there are group sessions on a number of different topics available every day. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is that if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. If you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, go to betterhelp.com/almanac or choose the Poisoner's Almanac during sign-up and get 10% off your first month of therapy. So that will bring us to some housekeeping. But actually, first, I need to step away and grab some cough drops because I feel the cough coming on. So if you'll excuse me for just a second.
You're going to turn into a cough drop.
Yeah. Okay, so that's going to bring us to housekeeping for the old podcast. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. Thank you in advance for leaving 5-star reviews where applicable. Follow us on socials. There will be links in the show notes for that. Follow the podcast Instagram podcast underscore, poisoners underscore almanac. Don't mind me. I just work here. If you're listening on your phone, screenshot from your phone and post that to your socials and tag us in it. We'd love to see those and reshare them. Interaction, engagement, as the cool kids call it. The Patreon is up and running. The link is in the bio for that. Let us know what kind of content you guys would like to see on there. Becoming a paid patron is accompanied by some cool perks. You get weekly bonus episodes. You get the option to leave us a voicemail that we will play right here on the podcast and react to. And also you get shouted out by name on the podcast. And those people are as follows: 87 Pens Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Kate the Fairy, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shatreet, Jay Went, Incan Hafner, Kiri Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R., Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B., Willie Wolf NZ, Mama G, Nicole Rivers, Richard Bianco, Heather Nolan, Katie Rose, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Shostak, Maggie Jarm, Ogre the Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G, Knittin' Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, Terrorsaurus Hex, T-Bug, Christine Moljadi, Morgan Brittingham, Blau Frosch, a.k.a. Clara Jurisons, Vix, Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Macaulay Sterland, Too Fidgety, Wendy G, Elena M.K., Vilma Anderson, Caitlin Martin, Pungrammed 101, Minnesota SPT, Michael McCombs, Tasha, Stuart Slattery, Prim Risen, Simone Valdez, Christian Scradergaard, Maria Anna, Bonnie, Oma D, Rynel Alara, Kristen Arnold, Aaron Carey, Lynn Simpson, Melissa Emmel, Desiree Davis, Jennifer Ramirez Johnson, Dalek Party, The Warped Witch, Sometimes Jules, Mr. Slave, Dizzy Dancer, Creative Otter, Yadmit, Supergirl Sway, Rachel, Anya Brandt, Ebby, Leah Marie Matson, Lady Digitalis, Jesse, Shay 10, Julia Franzoni, Sparks, Gloria Eichmann, Thomas Huff, From Strings to Things, Soy Kasumi, and please welcome the newest member of our Patreon, Jessica Gasparini. Thank you all so much for supporting the podcast. Jessica Gasparini. She sounds like, okay, I'm thinking of like a Godfather situation. She's like the girlfriend of a guy that's in a mob family, but he's dating a girl from a rival mob family. Jessica Gasparini. You know, the Gasparinis.
What's that line? You come today on my daughter's wedding.
You come to my house on the day of my daughter's wedding. There's so many iconic lines from that. Oh man. Gosh.
And all I think of is like is it a mole or is a rodent of some sort in Zootopia? And like they try to recreate the Godfather with this like mole or whatever.
No way.
And they go to visit like and ask questions, and it turns out like what's the rabbit's name? Anyway, she like saved his daughter from being run over by a
Hops. Is that her name?
Hops, Officer Hops. Yeah.
Officer Hops.
But yeah, it's just like this is my daughter's wedding day.
Played by what's her name? Jennifer. Is it Jennifer Goodwin? She was in Once Upon a Time. She was voiced by Snow White.
Yeah.
Yeah. Officer Hops. Opposite Jason Bateman, of course, who voices the Fox, who's a kind of a shady guy.
I like the Fox. It makes sense though. He's clever. He's
of course. He's
wily.
A fox. Wily. So. Be sure to send questions or content suggestions to the podcast Instagram with a comment or a DM. And leave us a voicemail if you're a patron. That link is on the Patreon. Speaking of voicemails, I got one queued up right here from none other than Sasha the Rubel. So I don't know if Rubel is her last name or is that a reference to some sort of. She said she typed Sasha the Rubel with the apple strudel.
I'm gonna look up Rubel.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do it.
All right.
Also, strudel sounds really good right now.
Absolutely. All right, let's hear from Sasha. Let me rewind this. Or maybe I'll just refresh the page. That'll be easier. There we go. Okay.
Hey, it's me. That sounded weird. I like it. So I've been noticing sometimes when you just laugh about something, you cut it away, like you cut it out. And I just wanted to tell you, I'm usually also laughing. So what that does to me is I have to pause so I can finish laughing and then I continue. And then I'm like, oh, I would have loved to hear you laughing. And I would love to just hear that once. So just if you feel like it's disturbing or annoying to keep it in, I don't think it is. I think others, I bet one person has this issue as well, at least one. And
Probably.
also, I don't know if anyone else experiences this because I can do some American, or like not American, I can do some English accents. And whenever I record anything here, it's just like masking. And I'm like, oh my God, I should be able to do like an American accent. And then I just do like some German weird stuff. And then I'm like, oh my God, what do I say? That's just very irritating to me. And they, them. It's they, them.
They, them. My apologies. I probably literally just said she a minute ago, didn't I? Did I use the wrong pronoun? Anyways, they, them. My apologies.
Get it right. Yeah.
So
I think
this was before we started. We only just started using we have AI editing tools available to us now, which is something we've invested in for the podcast.
I use sparingly still because it still likes to take out pauses that I want there. So I always listen through it to see if like I want to leave something in. So
yes, there's always a solid manual listen through for sure.
Yeah, I will say sometimes you're laughing. Sometimes you're laughing too because I totally had a moment of like word salad or something, and so like I was like, "Oh, they probably don't want to hear me screwing up all that." So, but hey, maybe I'll leave that in.
Maybe you should.
It's kind of funny because like my brain just gets kind of ahead of itself, and then like it like my mouth has to follow up, and it's like
right,
you know. So.
Yes. Yes. We're still getting used to the AI editing parameters. You can kind of throttle it a bit. You can, on one hand, we can edit short clips where there are no gaps, there are no verbalized pauses, nothing like that. On the other hand, you can throttle it down where it just removes, like, I guess you would call obnoxious silences or whatever. But we use it to, honestly, we got it to shorten and streamline Becca's workflow when she goes to edit the episode, because she is our editor at this point. In the future, when there's millions of people listening to Becca's incredible podcast, we're going to have several personal assistants, production assistants. It's going to be a whole thing. But right now, Becca is the editor for this here podcast. So, but this was before we started using those tools, so I don't know.
We do have a voluntary graphic designer that helps us out sometimes.
We do, and that's our good friend Erin. Who have the people heard her voice on the podcast? She's been in the room
episode with me.
Yes. Yeah. So you guys know Erin. Yeah. Erin is like, I would say, I'll go ahead and say this publicly. She's kind of first in line to become our, first additional member of the podcast team as far as production goes.
She's probably listening to this and being like,
she doesn't know. We've never said this to her. But she's a graphic designer. I mean, as the podcast grows, hopefully, fingers crossed, there's all sorts of, offloading of stuff like, custom thumbnails for, YouTube and the editing process in general, socials, all this wild stuff.
We could pay for some good like artwork and for like the
yes
merch. My brain is like, not today.
So all right, that's going to bring us to today's subject, which is what, my dear?
Rabies.
Heyo.
And this
Did
little,
you
don't
cover
worry,
his
this little
face?
guy, yeah, this little guy's clean. He doesn't have rabies. We're good. So
We
yeah,
both
we're
had our
talking.
shots.
We've never had rabies shots.
I'm just kidding.
But so they're actually pretty expensive, and we'll go over that in a second. Unfortunately,
Okay.
what's not expensive, right?
Well,
So, you can get eggs or you can get rabies shots. I mean, you're just gonna have to.
And you will have to choose.
So we're gonna talk about this other zoonotic disease that honestly should terrify you. It's been feared for a long time. It's been around for a long time. And I'm terrified of it, despite my desire to cuddle all the critters. So, but yeah,
she sends me videos of bats eating bananas.
They're so cute.
They
Yum,
are.
Yum, yum. They're
Yes.
so cute. The
They
only
nom nom
like
so
chewing
well.
sounds that I like are like bats.
They're adorable.
And things like that. So, but yeah, rabies. It's an old disease with human cases dating as far back as like 4,000 years ago. It's been known about since 2000 BC. There's written records from 1930 BC of the virus from this Codex of Eshnuna from Mesopotamia. And it includes like rules on preventing bites from diseased dogs and fines for anyone who owned a dog that bit another person, making them ill and leading to death, because it was pretty well known that at that time, dogs were probably the biggest spreaders of it. So
where was that codex from?
Mesopotamia.
Oh, okay. This is this would be BCE before Common Era. Wow. That's fascinating.
So
okay.
Yeah. Now, rabies is caused by the rabies virus, which is a Lyssavirus. There's also a related Australian bat Lyssavirus. So
keep your voice down.
There's a number of these.
Keep your voice down. He's going to hear you.
Anyway, so, but the name Lyssavirus actually comes from the Greek spirit, or she's like a she's a deity, but she's not like a deity.
She's a demigod, like Maui.
Yeah, but didn't they call it something different in Greek? Or am I thinking? Or
I don't remember.
Here, I'll look her up, and it'll tell me right there. I'm sure. She was like a minor goddess. So
there's major and minor gods and goddesses.
Yeah, like
let's go.
Yeah, so like, well, I guess you could call her like a demigoddess, I guess, and if you wanted to, but I think they just called it like she was a goddess, and they had like their whole family drama and stuff. She's related to Nyx, I believe.
Okay.
So now in Greek mythology, Lyssa was and it's Lyssa, was the goddess of rage, fury, and rabies, known for driving mad the dogs of the hunter Actaeon and causing them to kill their master. So there's been a lot of like stories with this particular illness involved.
But that lore, like that kind of lore, that was probably established after that seems like it comes after the Mesopotamian codex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting.
So, and like, I mean, it was pretty well known that that dogs can go mad, bite you, and cause you to go mad.
Right. There was like a colloquial
of madness to it. So, which we'll discuss in a moment. But
okay.
Now, the Greeks attributed the illness directly to this particular minor goddess / spirit. The name rabies comes from the Latin word rabire, meaning to rage, which likely came from the Sanskrit word rabhas, meaning to do violence. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, Lyssavirus causes rabies. Just giving you a little bit of etymology there.
Makes sense.
It is fair to associate the illness with such because it is horrible and it will lead to a sort of madness and death. Technically, it causes acute progressive fatal encephalomyelitis. It is absolutely ruthless, and once an animal or person has shown symptoms, it's too late. Like, it's almost 100% fatal.
Right. That's the thing about rabies. There's a 0% survival rate.
Yeah, once you show symptoms, it's that's usually it. There are a few survivors of this disease, less than 20 really, but even those that have survived have had pretty serious complications. There's only been like 1 or 2 that have like recovered enough to have a pretty normal life. So, but thankfully these cases of human rabies, at least here in America, is pretty rare, likely because of precautions such as rabies vaccinations in dogs, and for like post-exposure in humans, there's vaccinations that way, as well as management of animals found to be rabid, and the distance we typically have from the wildlife in most urban areas, at least. There are only about 1 to 3 cases per year here, but like worldwide, there's still about 59,000 deaths from rabies each year. So it's still, a problem elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I've heard some just terrible cases of, like, say, children dying after like a bat was found in their room, but they didn't see a bite mark, so they didn't think it was a big deal. It's if you wake up and there's a bat in your room, just go anyway. Get the shots, even like, because we're gonna discuss it. Even if you weren't bit, it's in the saliva, and if it got its saliva on any kind of cut or mucous membrane or anything like that, like it's you just want to. It's better to be safe than sorry with this particular virus, because, like I said, once symptoms show, you're usually done for.
Yeah.
So, the majority of these cases tend to occur in parts of Asia and Africa. We have discussed its history in the late 1800s before with like Louis Pasteur, when he did his research and he created a vaccine for it, which of course he was improved upon later. Like that was he had this specific goal of finding a vaccine for that particular virus. And look, I think bats are cute. Okay, I think raccoons are cute.
They're
adorable.
adorable.
A lot of animals are cute, but I will not pick
Definitely.
up a critter, just because I do. I mean, I may be tempted to, but that's what I got my little stuffy guy here. He can't be rabies. He can't be rabid. He can't have rabies.
No.
So, I'll have to suffice with these guys. And
people
there
on
are
TikTok,
people
on TikTok always say like, if not friend, why friend shaped?
Yeah, they're so cute. And it really sucks because there's lots of animals out there that are so cute, but they can definitely either rip your face off or can cause some sickness in you.
Let me ask the guy with the pet squirrel that went viral on TikTok, and then the squirrel was eventually removed by the local government. Did that have anything to do with the risk of rabies?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I mean, if it did, then they're kind of in the wrong for that, because you don't typically see rabid squirrels. Usually, if a squirrel gets attacked by a rabid animal, it's pretty much dead. It gets small.
Yeah, they don't leave it alive. They're
usually it's not going to make it anyway, so it won't make it to spread it. I honestly can't think of a case where I've heard of a squirrel having rabies. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I don't know the details of that situation, but he wouldn't. I don't think he would have been at risk for rabies, especially. I mean, if you have a cat, it's more at risk for rabies than a squirrel would be. I'm just saying, it is, especially if it's not getting its shots. Stray cats are they're more likely to spread rabies than dogs these days, because they're out and about more, that kind of thing.
I think we associate. The rabid dog reference is, it's in that that Roman and Greek lore.
Mad dog.
Right, mad dog and stuff like that. Like, and also Old Yeller has a lot to do with the cultural association of rabies with dogs, because that's one of the saddest things.
I should get compensation for being made to read that stinking book. That one, and like Where the Red Fern Grows.
Brother, stop it. Old Dan and Little Ann. Old Dan and Little Lamb.
Anyway,
It's too much. We were children.
Anyway, but we'll go over like specific animals who can carry it and spread it and all that as well. So, and there's other things you can catch from critters, but we're not going to get distracted on that. We're going to stay with rabies for now. Okay?
Right.
There's lots of things that toxoplasmosis. Anyway,
you said we're not going to talk about that, but there's the toxoplasmosis, and also there's.
But let's kind of go back a little further in history to see how others viewed and treated.
We could retitle this podcast "Becca's Health Anxiety."
Yeah, I mean, season 2.
Okay.
Health Anxiety. Anyway,
season 2.
But like, also like the whole mad dog thing. Like, there was a time when it was primarily.
Speaking of dogs,
there was a time when it was primarily spread by dogs. Like, that's why it was so associated with them, because it was like they were like the primary carriers at one time. So, and honestly, in other parts of the world, stray dogs would count for that today as well. It's just here in America, we have all but like eliminated it as a problem in dogs, and you would actually have, it's actually more common for a cat to spread it than a dog here.
Interesting.
So Democritus, it's a fun name, who lived between 460 and 370 BC. So he was like a philosopher before Socrates.
Socrates.
Yeah. Socrates. So he reportedly described rabies, as did Hippocrates. And Hippocrates actually said this is his quote: "Persons in a frenzy drink very little, are disturbed and frightened, tremble at the least noise, or are seized with convulsions." So that's kind of an explanation there. Aristotle explained that dogs suffer from the madness. This causes them to become irritable, and all animals they bite to become infected. So sounds pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. The Roman writer Cardinus described the saliva from a rabid dog as a virus, which, and it's not too far off, which incidentally comes from the Latin word for venom. So, because they kind of, they weren't aware of like microbes and stuff. Some may have like theorized that there were like little things causing sickness, but at some point too, it was like, oh, it must be poison from this dog's mouth somehow, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, but the fact that he connected it to their saliva is impressive.
Yeah,
like that he got that far.
Mm-hmm. Well, they know when they're being bit, something's going on. So it's like, they're trying to figure out what it is. So the disease has long been feared. Like I said, it was actually not uncommon for a victim of a mad dog bite to actually kill themselves rather than wait for the horrors of the symptoms that would come about. And there's actually some speculation as well of that stories of, or at least reminiscent to, werewolves and vampires have been inspired by this disease of basically being bitten and going mad, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not the only thing that has spurred those stories, but
Mm-hmm.
The more modern day historian Eugen Weber once observed that French peasants in the 19th century feared, above all, wolves, mad dogs, and fire. So it's been long, it's been up there on the list for a long time of fears.
Mm-hmm.
Now, treatments of the ancient world, and these are going to get interesting, included a lot of the same kind of stuff that used for other illnesses. In the 1st century AD, Celsus, the Roman scholar of sorts, suggested holding the patient underwater. So you could drown, or you could die of rabies.
So you're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy about it.
So, yeah. Other ineffective treatments included placing the liver of the rabid animal on the wound site. So you had to do some dissection, I guess.
Okay.
I feel like that would make things worse.
Trust me, bro. It works.
I feel like that would make things worse, to be honest.
Probably.
Yeah. Also, herbal concoctions that just didn't work, leaving the wound open to bleed. And you know that this is probably the medieval period at this point. And honestly, though, it wouldn't be like, if it's like bleeding, it's kind of flushing stuff out. So it's not terrible, but it's not going to like cure rabies. Also, burning the wound, cauterizing it. They would often use like a hot poker, though, or even like they would even like fire up this like hot metal religious icon and place it like on there, thinking like, oh well, if we're
Like
gonna
a cross?
cauterize it and bless it, I guess. I don't. Yeah. Well, you think too, like with madness,
I love that
it's
so
like
much.
they might think like, oh, maybe it's evil spirits causing the madness part. I'm not.
Witchcraft.
So yeah. Also, placing hairs from the animal on the wound.
Mm-hmm.
Or having the patient drink a medicine with the animal's hair in it.
Mm-hmm.
Other folk remedies held that dog bite victims could protect themselves from rabies by killing the dog that had already bitten them, or applying the offending dog's hair to the wound, or cutting off its tail. I feel like you're just going to piss it off more.
Right.
Or maybe it's dead by that point. I don't know. But
probably. Like,
yeah.
Gosh. I can't imagine, somebody trying to cut off Old Yeller's tail instead of,
I couldn't do
do
it.
what's necessary.
Die. I'd be like, I'm sorry you bit me.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to send me, and you'd have to leave the premises. Like, you wouldn't be able to. Mm-hmm.
Then there were Madstones. So this treatment emerged in the 18th century in America, mainly. Something America would do, it sounds like. So Madstones were basically calcified hairballs found in the stomachs of certain animals, such as cows, goats, and deer. These are like ruminating type animals. Yeah.
Ew.
It makes me think of like, what do they use in Harry Potter when someone's poisoned? A bezoar?
Yes.
Maybe it's something like that.
A bezoar.
Bezoar. But these were incredibly expensive and valuable, as they were seen as cures to rabies, amongst other things. And they believed that like you could draw the madness out of the wound by like putting it on it or whatever. Apparently, like Lincoln was into this because they did something to his kid with it. I don't know that he actually had rabies though, or if he just got bit and they just assumed. But then they were like, he lived. It's probably just that he didn't have.
I just love, before the time of, clinical research data, like there's nothing but anecdotal evidence. Like somebody gets sick and it's not even, I get, there were people who were called doctors or physicians at that time, but they basically just sit around and say, what's that?
Barbers who would bleed you.
Barbers. Sweetie Todd. But like they just sit around and the conversation goes something like, well, you know what I heard? I heard if you put the hair of the dog that bit him on the place where he got bit, it'll get better, I tell you. It all sounds like something Papa would say. All of it. There's just trial and error.
Hair of the dog, hair of the pup. Hair of the dog came from?
No.
Is it that like a remedy for hangovers or something? It means like drinking more or something.
Well, yeah, okay.
I think.
Yeah. But it's just like
idioms. I don't always get them, so.
Of course. But like there's no like even if you do discover something as a physician, there's no guarantee that's ever going to get communicated to everybody else who is currently attempting to practice medicine. Like it may never reach them.
Now we have Facebook.
Yeah.
And look, no, I've been a part of the.
Oh my God!
I've been a part of the mom
Happy Friday
groups.
to me.
I've been a part of the mom groups, and no judgment. Okay, I just don't.
Tons of judgment from me though.
If they're not doing anything like harmful or like will harm the person, I just don't say anything. I'm like, look, they're not gonna listen anyway. But
sure.
like, I've come across posts of like, oh, you got to cut potatoes and put potato slices in your socks so it soaks out the toxins from your feet. Or I'm like, first of all, I've seen your feet. The calluses on them things, ain't nothing coming out of them. First of all, and that's ridiculous. And because they turn brown the next day. It's like, yeah, because it's called oxidation.
Yes, that's.
And anyway, or onions. If you put an onion next to your bed, it'll soak the illness away from you. I mean, if you want to smell that thing
Yeah.
all night, you go right ahead, but it's not really gonna. And people are like, oh, woke up feeling better. I'm like, it's because your immune system works, thank God.
Yes, that is what we call,
So-
yes, that's what we call correlation, not causation.
But there's
You're
a lot
noticing
of
two
them.
incidental things that happened at the same time.
There's a lot of them. I mean, like a lot of them are probably from like old wives' tales too. I mean, we live like right beneath Appalachia, and I guarantee you there are a lot
Brother.
of folk cures there like that. So it's not
We're not
uncommon
far
around
away.
here.
And
like I said, if it's not like harming someone, you know, I'm not going to really say anything. But unless it's like, they're describing symptoms of something like, I don't know, appendicitis. I'm like, actually, you might want to.
Yeah, you're in danger.
Go see somebody about that. So, but you know, it is. But if it's like a cold or something, I'm like, that's not going to help. But you do you.
Yeah, a lot.
You know?
A lot of times, patients. You know, I'll hear my own patients. I work in home health, as I've stated before, and I go to very rural areas where the home remedies and the old wives' tales are much more prevalent. You know, people say stuff all the time like, "If you feed that dog gunpowder, he'll guard the back door all night." Okay.
Or he'll die.
And then, of course, the next thing in the conversation is, did you take your Lasix? I'm just trying to keep you out of the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. We could do a whole episode on like folk remedies and stuff. We really could. And like, but I don't want to come off as like being judgmental or anything either. But it's just
right. It's a balance.
Those specific ones don't.
Sure.
Don't do anything.
There's plenty of stuff that gets said that just makes you laugh. It's not. There's no way to.
Yeah.
I should get an Oscar.
And onions are healthy for you. Eating them, you know, they do have beneficial things when you eat them.
There's nutritional value in an onion.
So, but like it's not going to soak up
when
a
you
disease.
eat it.
Yeah, when you eat it, it's gonna. You know, there are benefits to eating good, healthy fruits, vegetables, foods.
Of course,
you know, there are. That's
yeah.
You know, I don't consider that like a folk remedy to be like, well, I'm gonna go take a vitamin or eat some healthy food. I'm like, you're actually trying to help your body with nutrition. I get that. You know,
go for it.
Yeah. Go for it. Okay, so in 1805, one of these Madstones that we were talking about sold for like $2,000, which that's a lot for back then. There were numerous reports of these stones working, but these were all like anecdotal accounts. You know, apparently there's no like, you know, it was the thing, right? It was the potato in your socks of the day.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's go over what rabies does to the body so that you'll understand why it was and is still so feared. The incubation period for rabies is typically like 1 to 3 months. This just means it can take this much time to show up after exposure. However, it can actually take up to as long as like 6 years to show up in some people. So it could just happen to you one day and you're like, wait a minute, where did this come from? That's probably not the first thing you're thinking when you get it, though. You're probably like, oh, great, gonna die. You know, like it's just a scary thought to be like, did I come into contact with a bat 6 years ago? I don't know. You know,
the first thing you would think is, oh my God, where are my keys? I can't find my keys.
I mean, I forget. Well, anyway, I forget to drink water anyway. So, and we're going to talk about the whole water drinking situation. But now, once it does, it's too much. It's pretty much too late, and prognosis is very grim at this point. It directly attacks the central nervous system. First signs and symptoms of rabies may be pretty ambiguous, such as a headache and fever. So here we are again with our flu-like symptoms, right? Gotta love it. Now, there will also be inflammation of the meninges that's, you know, we're surrounding the brain, as well as consequences of such, including partial paralysis, anxiety, insomnia, confusion, agitation, abnormal or aggressive behavior, paranoia, terror, and hallucinations. So it's a pretty crazy sort of disease.
Terror.
Terror. aggressive behavior, which is typical in most cases, and we'll discuss some differences in other cases in a second, but it's actually helpful to the virus because it is spread through biting much of the time. So in a way, the virus just hijacks the host in much the same way as the cordyceps fungus takes over the actions of an insect. Remember, we talked about those
Yes.
those particular, fungi, not very fun guys. Anyway, but another way it does this is through a symptom known as hydrophobia, which is, fear of water, basically. So like 80% of those infected with rabies will resist drinking water and even panic if water or some other beverage is offered to them. They will literally it's bad. Even trying to drink beyond this panic will cause painful spasms in the throat and larynx.
Wow.
And it does this for a reason, though. Saliva production is greatly increased in infected individuals or animals, and this is because the virus spreads through the saliva. So it wants to keep saliva in there, and it wants to make its host aggressive so it can spread itself further, right? So it doesn't want you swallowing any of this down or watering it down. So it's just another adaptation of this virus to make you literally terrified of water and make your throat close up if water is introduced. It's horrific, but
but from an evolutionary biology standpoint, like that's brilliant.
Wow. It's brilliantly horrific.
There you go.
Yeah, but this adaptation of the virus probably came from a very long time ago, and just helps it to reproduce and spread. Now, as I said, this symptom is present in about 80% of those infected, and this type of rabies, I don't want to say there's like two types, but there kind of is. This particular type of rabies is referred to as encephalitic or furious rabies, while 20% of cases are more paralytic, used to be known as dumb rabies, where you're just like, can't talk. You can't.
Dumb rabies.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, back then, I think that's something that people called mute. People who are mute as well, right? Like,
the word has
dumb.
changed.
They're not in our minds are like, oh, you just called him stupid or dumb, but no, like dumb at that point meant they don't speak. They don't. Yeah. So. Yeah. But either one, this paralytic rabies also results in death after progressive weakness and paralysis, leading to respiratory paralysis. So either way, you die. Now, exposure often occurs with the bite of an infected animal, which, makes sense. It's in the saliva. It is transmitted through the saliva specifically. So you could have a cut, though, and get infected, get infected animal saliva on it. Or say it scratches you and saliva is present, whether it's on its, nails or it's foaming at the mouth kind of deal. Even a lick can end in rabies. That's why it's important, even if you don't remember getting bitten, if you've been exposed to an animal that could have rabies, it's important to, get the shots, which are very, very, very expensive. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So if you can, just avoid encounters altogether. As sad as that is.
We just came from a dog grooming business where we walked in. Becca wanted to walk in and ask about their pricing and, logistical things. And right there on their bulletin board behind the desk of the receptionist is rabies vaccines are required for any care.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And
you got to show proof of it to us.
Yeah. I mean, for the safety of their staff and the safety of other animals that are there, it's important.
Yeah. It's very dangerous.
But yeah, thankfully, it's pretty rare in pets here in America these days, especially dogs. But
because of vaccines,
because of rabies, the rabies vaccine. Yeah. So very important to have that with your dogs. I think technically they did something in the county that we live in, or they tried to. I don't know how they kind of hold people accountable to this or whatever, but you have to have your dog registered, and amongst that registration, it has to have a rabies vaccination or something like that. like as a
Interesting.
way. Yeah, and because there's been a lot of like strays and stuff like that, and like you have to have a license to breed in order to actually like be able to do that kind of thing. They've been trying to control that whole situation. I'm not sure how, like I said, how it's enforced or whatever, but here we are. But yeah, now I've read documented cases of some who were fatally infected without a bite at all. They just had contact with an infected animal or wound. In one case, this was in 1990, a 39-year-old male veterinary technician put his uncovered scratched hand into the mouth of a rabid cow and became infected that way. Wear gloves, guys. So, very sad, young guy, promising career. Here he is. 2 years later, a herd of sheep were being tended to by a shepherd and his 2 sons. And it had been, some of the sheep had been attacked by a rabid wolf. All 3 individuals were infected when they applied burnt thorny wool to the sheep's wounds as like a bandage. It was like a, something they were able to find, something that they used in this location to, I guess, help sheep with wounds. All I can think about is Shaun the Sheep right now. When I think about sheep, all I see is Shaun the Sheep. Hey, Shaun the Sheep. Hey, Shaun the Sheep. My daughter loves Shaun the Sheep. So
yes.
Anyway, but yeah, their hands were scratched and then infected through contact with the remaining saliva of the rabid wolf that was left on the sheep's wounds. So wolf wasn't even around at that point. They still were infected.
Wild.
So yeah, if you have any sort of contact with an animal's saliva, cut or no cut, or even if you were in the same room with a possibly infected animal, and it could have been close enough without you knowing, you need to get prophylactic treatment, which is the rabies shots. And it is more than one shot. It's over a period of time. You may think that you're fine, but once, like I said, you start showing symptoms, it's too late and it will likely result in death. Once you start showing symptoms, there's nothing they can give you apart from like supportive care and hope for the best. And we're going to go over a particular protocol that they've done in some cases, that it seems to have worked in a few cases, but it's not exactly advised, as it has also failed in many other cases. It's just kind of a, roll the dice, I guess. But yeah, as of 2016, only 14 people have ever survived rabies. There have been more, but not many since. It's still less than 20. It can theoretically be spread from person to person via a bite or through sexual contact, as the virus has been found elsewhere as well. All I'm saying. However, this is not likely to happen, as those who show symptoms of the disease are hospitalized and precautions are taken. So it's not like if they start showing signs, they're not out there like just biting people. I mean, they're going to be in the hospital, at least around, here. So yeah, so far there has never been a documented case of human to human spread of rabies via biting or other physical contact. So it's theoretically possible, but it hasn't been reported. Now there have been cases, however, human to human spread via organ transplant.
Yikes.
Yeah. The first of such cases was in 1978 with a corneal transplant. A corneal, the eyes. In 1994, 2 other human cases occurred through corneal transplantation from one donor who had died with the clinical signs of food poisoning, according to the hospital, which, according to the records at the hospital where he died, which probably was a misdiagnosis of rabies infection. So I guess they were like food poisoning, but it was actually rabies. So anyway.
Is there that much overlap between those symptom groups?
Death can come pretty quickly after you've started having symptoms. It's only like a matter of days, maybe a week. But I mean, they probably just weren't expecting there to be a case of rabies. And so I don't know. I don't know how they got that misdiagnosis. That's a weird misdiagnosis to me. Food poisoning. Also, if you die of food poisoning, it's like, wouldn't you like to, I don't know, go a little deeper into that to see
Yeah,
with
we got
the
to identify a
actual.
particular
Yeah, because then
bacteria
you're going to want to know if
or
there's going to be an outbreak of this kind of food poisoning going around. Like we'd want to like
100%.
test and see like, oh, is this E. coli? Is this, salmonella? What kind of food poisoning is this? Do we
But
need to make
also
a
in the
call to the health
screening,
department?
yeah. In the
Yeah.
screening process for organ recipients, I mean, you're already talking about somebody who needs a transplant, which means they're going to be on immunosuppressive drugs, probably permanently.
Yeah.
Just so that their body continues to accept the transplanted organ.
Well,
If
from what
you have to rule out any sort of transmission of disease as a result of the transplant. Like that's
yeah, but see, they didn't know, I guess, that he'd had. They don't really. I don't know that they check for rabies and that sort of thing though, because it's so uncommon.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
also, it's they're going by like blood type typically when it comes to organ transplant and probably history. And the transplants are going to happen pretty quick. You can't just keep organs out on a table or even
Timing
in a
is very
cooler for very
important.
long. You have to,
Yeah. But I'm
timing
just
is
thinking
pretty
of
much
like
everything.
the workup
That
before a the acceptance of a donor organ or tissue. You just don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. You don't want to have the ultimate Uno reverse after a successful organ transplant,
Well, the key is to hopefully identify rabies in the patient.
Of course.
Before they
Which
die
I guess
and give their
should be
organs.
part of the screening process. I don't know.
Well, they don't like rabies is it's so uncommon here that unless you tell someone like, yeah, I had contact with this, critter, or if you are having like the typical signs of rabies, because everybody's different. They might show signs at different times. They might die before they show certain signs. So but yeah, this
it's very
it was
complex.
Just, so it sucks, but it happens.
Yeah.
There are people who still get things like hepatitis C and stuff from blood transplants. I mean, blood transfusions and stuff. Blood transplants, blood transfusions and stuff. So it's like, it just kind of fell through the, what is it you neurotypical people say? It fell through the rafters. It fell through
the cracks.
That one. Where did I come up with rafters?
I don't know. You're trying to come up with some sort of structure.
I'm just making stuff up.
Yes, and that's fine. So are the rest of us.
So, yeah.
I'll look at you weird if you get your idioms wrong. Just letting you know.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people look at me weird anyway, and that's okay.
Oh, right. So,
but misdiagnosis of rabies, not cool. There's also been cases of solid organ transplants infecting others with rabies, including one such occurrence in 2004 involving 3 recipients of organs from one donor who unknowingly had rabies, and this infected the 3 recipients, and they died later of rabies.
Terrible.
Really sucks.
Yeah.
Another case was reported in 2013. There were 2 more occurrences in China in 2015 and 2016 of rabies spreading via transplanted organs. As for total, I only have a count from between 1978 and 2017, during which there were at least 13 cases of rabies via transplant of some sort. So, the most recent case I read about was a man in Michigan who received a kidney transplant in December of 2024, and he died of rabies just earlier this year. 2025. January of 2025.
Brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, most cases of rabies worldwide, past and more recently, have come from dog bites, usually strays, usually in countries nowadays with less access to vet care or where strays are numerous. This is one of the many reasons, as I have repeatedly said in this episode already, that if you have a dog or pets in general, they just need to be vaccinated against such illnesses like this. Rabies vaccines, heartworm meds, flea prevention. It gets expensive, but it is responsible dog ownership. Don't
100%.
take on. You shouldn't take on a pet that you can't afford.
No.
Yeah, like we have one dog, and that's all I can afford. I can't afford another dog, so we have one dog.
Yeah, it is actually a passive form of animal cruelty to take on the care of a dog that you cannot afford to give the basic vaccination regimen to. That is dog care 101. You got to get the shots.
Yeah, and I've had patients before when I worked in home health where there was like one lady had a like German Shepherd puppy and it was in a crate. This woman could not get up by herself. And she said that her daughter got it for her, like as a companion. But I'm like, this is not the dog you get.
No, you get them
for
a
someone for
full-grown
a
dog.
like this dog needs lots of
Yes.
exercise and attention.
Yes.
It needs to be trained. It's a puppy.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
it's this. She's and like there was no caregiver, no other caregiver in the home. It was just I don't know. It was sad. There's not much you can
very
do about
sad.
it, because it's not your place to be like you shouldn't have this dog. But it's just I don't know. It's hard to see that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Now, and you just want to keep your pet safe. I mean, you wanted this dog, you want to keep it safe, right? Like that's important. In the U.S. specifically, the main spreader of rabies is bats.
Keep your voice down.
7 out of 10 U.S. rabies infections were caused by contact with infected bats. Believe it or not, cats actually rank higher as carriers for rabies than dogs in the U.S., as dog bites here only account for less than like 5% of cases. And my guess is because of the prevalence of like stray cats, cats that wander outdoors a lot more. I'm not sure though. I mean, I think we've all known like that really kind-hearted like person who feeds all the stray cats, but then there's more stray cats because they start having babies, and it's like your intentions, their intentions are good, but it's actually causing kind of a problem. So, and I mean, I get it. I love animals. We found kittens in our shed outside one time.
I forgot
it was
about
one year
that.
I left the shed open like just a little bit, and now I don't do that anymore. And somehow a cat had got in there and had kittens. And I only knew it because Sadie kept going over there and like sniffing, and like she was like just super like focused on this. This is not like her. So yeah, I checked it. Next thing I know, I hear little meows, and we put them in a box and called a no-kill shelter to come get them because I was like, I can't take care of cats.
Yeah.
So I made sure it was a no-kill shelter. And then they
would do that.
They made me swear that I didn't like have a cat give birth on purpose and call them to come pick up. I was like, no, I didn't. No, I promise I didn't. I mean, I get it though. I'm sure
do you guys get?
But yeah, here we are. Now, other major carriers and spreaders of rabies include raccoons. And guys, raccoons can get big.
Yes.
So can possums. But possums we'll talk about possums in a minute. Skunks, foxes, coyotes, wolves, monkeys, and rabbits, and mongooses. How come it's not mongoose? Isn't that weird? Like,
fair question.
Goose, geese.
Mongooses. Mongooses, of course. Makes sense.
Anyway, also, I need to, just full disclosure, I don't like monkeys. I only like Curious George.
Same.
That's it. The other monkeys freak me out. They're smart. They're very smart, and they will tear your freaking face off. I've seen footage of monkey attacks, so don't come for me. So, yeah, monkeys.
Our dog is getting nervous just at the mention of monkeys. That's
left.
what that sound was.
Yeah. She's always shaking her collar. Anyway. But yeah, monkeys freak me out.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So also cattle, horses, and elephants can become infected and die from rabies. Also those who drink raw milk. Yeah, if the cow is infected with rabies, there is some concern that you could also become infected via the milk if it's not pasteurized to kill the virus. Because you're drinking it, it's going into where your mucous membranes are. It can travel easily, easier into your body that way.
Don't drink raw milk.
Just
sincerely, us.
Even though it's theoretical at this point, it's actually advised that people who drink raw milk and find out that that cow had rabies get the rabies vaccine just in case. There was actually a case in November of 1998 where a 6-year-old dairy cow was diagnosed with rabies by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. It had become ill and aggressive and uncoordinated before dying. That's pretty big clues right there. So it was tested, ended up being positive for rabies. Now, the cow had been milked 12 times during the week before its death.
Oh, God.
Milk from the cow had been pooled with milk collected from other cows, and an unpasteurized portion was distributed for human consumption, raw milk. Now, public health investigations identified 66 persons who drank unpasteurized milk collected from this dairy during October 23rd and between October 23rd and November 8th, and all 66 received rabies post-exposure prophylaxis. So to make sure that they didn't catch rabies. Now, in addition, 5 also received the prophylaxis because of exposure to the cow's saliva during the 15 days preceding her death. Those that were actually actively around the cow. So now signs in horses are pretty similar, with aggression, uncoordination, circling, basically pressing the head or muzzle against things, lameness, muscle tremors, convulsions, and fever. Asian elephants have also been known to be infected and die from rabies. Pretty much similar symptoms there. Small rodents, however, such as hamsters, squirrels, guinea pigs, gerbils, chipmunks, rats, mice, and smaller rabbits don't seem to spread the disease too often. This may be because the smaller rodents are often killed if they get attacked by a rabid animal anyway. So it's like not so much that they physically can't be carriers, but like it's unlikely that they're going to be spreading it.
Yeah. When you said hamster, all I can think of is that one hamster that was stuck in that hamster ball in that animated movie.
Oh,
and he's got all the epic lines, and he's like,
yeah.
"Hello, Destiny. I've been expecting your call."
I always think of Hamtaro. Do you ever see Hamtaro, the little cartoon? Yeah, it was a cute little cartoon. It was just like a bunch of hamsters that like had little adventures when their humans were away. Anyway, or like the hamster from Secret Life of Pets.
Yes.
That's fun too. I love that movie. It was a cute movie. But anyway, even though they rank historically low amongst spreading it to humans, this doesn't mean you should go touch them like you're some Disney princess or whatever. Like, just probably not the best idea. I mean, the best part of Cinderella for me was the little mice. Gus. Right? Loved them. They were great. But
the Disney princess reference. You ignorant Disney princess wannabes wanted to touch all the animals and talk to them.
I'd love to touch all the animals. I would love to touch all the animals and talk to them, but I also don't want rabies. Like, where's the version of like Cinderella or Snow White where she dies from rabies and the end? Like, where's that at?
Maybe she's asleep for so long because she has rabies.
Maybe it wasn't the apple. Like, what if that, like, that would be a great, like, short story. Man. Like, it wasn't the apple and, like, the evil queen just kind of was, like, falsely accused.
Somebody needs to go to the Snow White fanfic archive and add this lore. She was sleeping because of rabies. We just proved it.
Then, like, the guy kisses her.
Now he has rabies. Oh, my God.
You know what? It's what he gets for doing so without consent. It's what he gets. It's what he freaking gets. You best believe if I wake up to some fool like planting one on me, I'm punching somebody.
Oh, man.
Ugh. Also, what is this, like necrophilia? Wasn't she supposed to be dead?
I am made of questions.
Don't kiss dead people.
Or don't do that.
Don't kiss people without their consent. And if they're dead, they can't give consent. All right. Marsupials, such as the opossum or the platypus, rarely become infected with rabies. They have lower body temperatures typically, and the environment within their bodies is just not as conducive to life for the virus for very long.
That's fascinating.
So pretty cool. Now, birds seem to show no symptoms and just recover if they're exposed to rabies. Like, that's pretty cool. Now,
really?
Birds of prey, the bigger birdies, they have shown evidence of rabies antibodies after eating an infected animal, but again, they seem to just deal with it. Like, their bodies just whatever.
What a flex. Okay.
Yeah. Also, we need to discuss seals.
Why?
Well, they're cute, they migrate, and they too can become infected with rabies now, apparently. Since May of 2024, there has been an outbreak of rabies among Cape fur seals along the coasts of South Africa. they can become aggressive and attack you if you approach one of these rabid seals. Honestly, you shouldn't, just don't walk up or approach wildlife
wild
in
animals.
general. Just don't do
man.
that. Like, don't. Why would you do that? I mean, yeah, they're cute and fluffy. They're cute, but don't do that.
If not friend, why friend shaped? We get it.
You would not believe how many people will just walk up on like a bison over there, and like, is it Yellowstone? Just to get like I'm gonna get a selfie with this bison.
No, brother.
No, or like a moose. You know how big moose are?
Okay, so I was just going to say,
they can swim. Then things
yes,
are
they can.
fast.
They run so fast. I just saw a clip. I think it was on Instagram. Wildlife photographer. He's got his camera on a tripod. A moose comes up. He looked like adolescent. He wasn't full grown, but still so massive. And he just very gently comes over and just sniffs his camera and sniffs the photographer. And he let the photographer like rub his nose. He was very docile, very kind. But I was so scared the whole time because that thing, the moose are killing machines.
Yeah,
they can take you down.
They can. They're huge. One of my favorite videos I've seen with a moose is like, it's like I think it's a shot from like a door camera or something like that. And like, it's a guy, he's trying to get something out of this like shed or something. And then like he looks behind them and he just like, he like gets inside the shed and closes it. And all of a sudden you see this humongous moose come up and sniff it. I'm like, yeah, not taking chances. Not dying today.
That guy knows
like,
what's up.
You know, just let the wildlife have their place. Don't mess with them because they will. Even if they're not meat eaters, they can still destroy you.
Don't matter, man. What did that lady say years ago? The ocean is the shark's house. Don't go to the ocean. Go to the beach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go very far. If I go into the water, it's like knee height water. I don't get out there and swim in the ocean. To me, that's just like between sharks, jellyfish, riptides, and that's just like here. Like you go to like a beach in Australia, I feel like there's like the killer jellyfish and all kinds of stuff. So it's just
Australian wildlife.
Not for me.
Australian wildlife, they have like leaderboards. You know, kills, bites. They keep stats.
I'm just over here getting attacked by my garbage disposal.
That's okay.
But I didn't die. I didn't die. So, yeah, but yeah, it's not, don't do selfies with moose, bison, any of those really large animals. You know, they're cute. You know, coyotes, cute, but they're not pack animals. No. They don't want to cuddle and snuggle. It's just not really them. They want to eat your Pomeranian or whatever. I'm sorry. Say what I said. They do. They're wild animals. And they're cute, but keep your distance unless you know like what you're doing. Unless you're is it Robert Irwin?
Yes.
Unless you're one of the Irwins.
Even he would tell you. It's so dangerous, y'all.
Leave it to the Irwins. Okay. They're great people. And they know what they're doing. But yeah, seals. I don't understand why you would walk up to it. Are you going to go pet a seal? I mean, they're cute. Don't get me wrong, but like Neil the seal. I love Neil the seal. I will watch Neil the seal like all day. But at the same time, you'll notice that those people don't just walk up to him either. Like they know to keep their distance. They know to have space, right? He's a pretty large animal.
Humongous.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about the vaccine for a second.
Okay.
Also, there's no other marine mammal that has been known to be infected so far. So at least that's good. Now, we talked about the vaccine with some of our other talks on the history and origins of microbiology and all that. Just to recap, 1885, Louis Pasteur, he had been just long set on just finding a vaccine for rabies specifically. And he actually provided the vaccine to a doctor to give the first time to a human subject who was 9-year-old Joseph Meister, who was bitten like 14 times by this rabid dog. Pasteur was hesitant at first because it had only been given to animals and stuff at this point, but it was working. It was working on them.
Yeah.
But given the situation and what they already knew about rabies and how it's pretty much a death sentence, it wasn't too hard to convince him to do so. So, yeah, the child's mother traveled to Paris to beg him to give them the vaccine, as she had heard that it had been working on all the dogs that had been infected that he was working with.
Wow.
You know, this was going on. It was a huge deal for medical science at this time.
Yeah.
Now, between the mother and Dr. Jacques Joseph Grancher,
How do
who
you spell it?
encouraged it's French. It's Grancher, Grancher.
Yeah.
So
Something
he
like that.
encouraged
That's
it,
my impression of a French accent. Sorry.
but he encouraged it to be attempted as well. So Pasteur agreed. Every day for 10 days, it was 12 doses of the vaccine was given to little Joseph, and it worked. It's a tricky virus, so yeah, you get a lot of doses, but it worked, and the little boy was saved. And news
That's
traveled,
amazing.
and those exposed came from all over the place seeking the vaccine because it was pretty
Yes.
common at the time. And
What year
there we
was
have
it?
medical history made. So now that's not to say that this particular vaccine was perfect. It was made using rabbits' spinal cords to retrieve an inactivated form of the virus, and then later later inactivated virus from the organs of other animals. So, you know, they were just working with what they had. It's complicated.
Yeah.
So
What year was that?
that was in 1885. Yeah, late
Okay.
1800s. This is when vaccines were beginning, or this is when like germ theory and all that was finally beginning to sort of take hold.
So, how was it administered? Was it like oral, or how did they do this?
It would have been injected, likely
Okay.
in the either subcutaneously, probably subcutaneously at that point. I think these days it's intramuscular injections because it's usually in the deltoid, I think. In children, it's going to be in the thigh muscle, that top thigh muscle right there. So, which they do that for kids with other vaccines, young kids. So, but yes. Anyway, science and medicine have since evolved with time and understanding, and now the vaccines we have today are more ethical and safer and less gross. They are more effective. They cause less side effects and can be more easily made, and you don't need like 12 doses a day for 10 days like poor little Joseph did. It's gotten, we've been able to lower the amount that you get that will be effective. So, and I mean, I imagine they were running out of rabbit spines or whatever. So, you know, now we can make it and have quantities of it that we need. Now, obviously, you probably are not going to find a rabies vaccine at your local doctor's office or urgent care. Typically, they're going to keep this at the ER. You kind of have to go to the ER for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, if you have pets, there's a routine for rabies vaccination for them. It differs between the one you choose. Like there's like the annual one. I think there's like a 3-year one, and there's a 7-year one, I think even. Something like that. But it prevents the illness should they be exposed, which also prevents it from getting to you, you know? So this is the reason why cases from domestic animals such as dogs have pretty much been eradicated in the US. I hesitate to use that word eradicated. Remember I said pretty much, and in the US these days I feel like anything I say could just jinx the world, so I'm just going to watch my tongue
That's right.
on that.
Such as measles has been eradicated. Yay.
But yeah, just going to shut up. If I see like an outbreak of rabies next week, I'm just like, what the? No, it doesn't typically work that way unless like a bunch of people are getting, you know, bitten by a rabid animal. So anyway, now people who work with potentially infected animals are typically recommended to get the vaccine. Those who work with animals a lot, say, you know, like wildlife, that kind of thing. In this case, the person is given 2 doses on specific days. So like you have like day 0 and then again on day 7. Now, a booster is also available for those in this position if needed, like 3 years later down the road. Usually they can do blood work to see if any antibodies remain and all that. So this is called pre-exposure prophylaxis. Then there's post-exposure prophylaxis, and this is for those possibly or definitely exposed to the virus via an animal encounter. And they are advised to basically, you should clean that wound. You should clean any wound, really, if you have a wound, you should clean it. If there is one, with soap and water, and you would need to receive the vaccine as soon as possible, bite or no bite, because a bite does not, like I said, have to be present or even seen for a person to be exposed. Honestly, the smallest of entry points for saliva to get in will be enough for an exposure. If you've never had a rabies vaccine in the past, like the pre-exposure prophylaxis, you will be given 4 doses over 2 weeks. So the schedule for the post-exposure is you get on day 0, so like that day 3, day 7, and then day 14. Now, there may be a 5th dose on day 28 for those with compromised immune systems. And you'll also be given a medicine called rabies immunoglobulin at the start, not in the same syringe or at the same site that the other is given to you, because they could interact in such a way that it makes one less effective. But if you received a rabies vaccine before, as in like you've had the pre-exposure one, then you would only need like 2 separate doses instead of the 4. There is no means of prophylaxis for rabies once the virus enters the central nervous system. This is why I've said multiple times now that once symptoms start, that's it. You can't just go and get a vaccine once you get the symptoms, because it's not gonna do anything. One reason for this is the poor immune response within the central nervous system to infection with rabies virus. There is some research being done to see if this can change, however. It'd be cool if it could. So yeah, if you visit an area with different medication accessibility, like say you get bitten or you have some animal encounter overseas, you will need to check with a medical professional upon re-entry to your home country to make sure other steps are not needed. If not given the immunoglobulin, the preventative measures could fail. Like that one dose of immunoglobulin they give you at first, along with the start of the shots. So far, there have been no failures of the appropriate vaccine schedule that's been advised with the immunoglobulin. It's incredibly expensive, though, in places like America, at least. I'm not sure if it's the same in other countries that have different kinds of healthcare and coverage and all that. Also, it will obviously vary between insurance companies. I've heard of if they'll even pay or cover this, which they should, but here we are. I've heard of anywhere between $400 to $15,000 just for the first appointment. That's a big range right there. One woman I read about in DC, Washington, DC, had to pay $8,000 for the immunoglobulin. Then each of the 4 doses of the prophylaxis cost about $500 a piece. The Centers for Disease Control says across the country, a course of rabies immunoglobulin and 4 doses of vaccine typically ranges from $1,200 to $6,500, but they are seriously overestimating the amount of help given by insurance companies in many cases. So, or
that's
how much?
Hysterical. Is that what you really typed in your notes?
Yeah. Well, like I read that and I was like, but that's not lining up with what I've seen in terms of what patients have to pay. So it's, yeah. And I imagine like you've got like the pharmacology, the pharmaceutical companies, like they mark stuff up all the time. Okay. They do. And it sucks. I mean, look at EpiPens.
Uh-huh.
Life-saving medication. We're going to charge you an arm and a leg for that.
That's right. And why? Because we can. Just to disabuse anyone of any, naive notions you may have about health insurance. I openly tell my patients, and Becca knows this herself as a healthcare worker too. Healthcare is about taking care of patients. Health insurance is about making money. And any healthcare worker who is going to keep their sanity will keep health insurance and healthcare as far away from each other as they possibly can be, because everybody that runs health insurance companies is going straight to hell.
Well, you also have like hospital CEOs, pharmaceutical CEOs. They're the ones making the big bucks.
Private equity, baby.
Yeah, and they're not even in patient care, but whatever. But it's It's pretty awful. I'll never understand the idea of like paying for health insurance every month, right? But then they don't help you at all. Like there might be some things they help with, like say like, yeah, sure. If you're, even if you have a baby though, like sure, they'll pay for some of that hospital stay, but you're going to have to pay for the majority of like the prenatal care, like depending on like what kind of insurance you have, like prenatal care, that was an upfront cost, I think, for us.
That's
and
right.
Thankfully my mom helped us out with that because it was over $1,000 just for that side of it. And with insurance. And then
with insurance, baby.
Yeah, and it's important to have prenatal care.
It's essential.
For many reasons. Yeah, for many reasons. And so
it's almost like these insurance companies are making enough profit to buy congressmen to keep things exactly the way they are.
And you have to make sure that you have this included in your insurance, because I've known people who they thought they were done having kids, so they stopped the portion of insurance that said they stopped the portion of insurance that was like for any sort of pregnancy or labor, delivery, that kind of thing. So they thought they weren't going to need it anymore. And she got pregnant, and they ended up having to sell a lot of stuff to afford it. Because at this point, I'm not sure if it's changed in any of the states thus far, but at that point there was they had this whole what's it called? You can't go in with the illness or with the condition.
Pre-existing conditions.
Yeah. If you have that condition already and come in, it's like tough. We're not paying for it. I feel like some of that's changed a little bit, but still
legally it has, because now insurance companies can't turn people away for pre-existing conditions. You legally can't do that now, but you could.
Yeah, but I mean like the insurance companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot. They can be tricky, and they play games. They do.
Well, they're evil.
They play games.
Line.
They will find ways to figure out how not to pay for something.
That's right.
Like my mom had that brain surgery. She had tumors on her brain they had to remove, and they were like, well, we don't think it's medically necessary. So the doctor had to call and be like, excuse me, she has tumors on her brain.
That's right. And when the doctor has to make a phone call like that, it's what's known as a peer-to-peer review, where they talk to a physician who could be unlicensed at this point because they did something stupid in their previous practice, and now the only job they could get was to work for an insurance company to deny claims.
Yeah, well,
and so it's a neurosurgeon. Yeah, it's a neurosurgeon. Right, it's a neurosurgeon speaking with somebody who is not a neurosurgeon. They're talking with an internal medicine doctor or an ER doctor or something like that. So it's a circus without a tent.
Yeah, and he gave my mom only paid what she would have had to pay if insurance covered it, because he knew she needed it. So he gave a pretty good discount, I think, when it came down to
amazing.
It. They were just ridiculous. Anyway, but yeah, it's rough. It's rough out there. I hate it. And I've heard a lot of medical debt horror stories concerning rabies as well. 55,000 people undergo prophylactic vaccination every year. Also, if you have to go to the emergency room for these treatments, they're not, like I said, they're not typically stored in the regular doctor's office or urgent care. They're going to charge you at least $1,000 just to be in the room.
Oh, yes.
One of those ratchet rooms, right? Ain't got no signal, nothing, but you're going to pay $1,000 to be in there.
Ain't got no signal.
Nothing. Yeah, I'm serious. It's awful. I've been in those rooms. Ridiculous.
I can't even watch the TikToks my wife sent me while I'm waiting.
And they clean them, but there's always something. There's always a speck of blood on the wall or something. I'm serious. Okay. It's what is this? What is this? I know y'all get that stuff in bulk. We don't need to pay y'all thousands of dollars just to stay in this stupid room. And if you look at the list of things they charge you for, it's one ibuprofen, $32. It's really? Yeah. So you get an itemized list of what they're charging you for. If you have a baby in the States, you're charged just to hold your child after you give birth to it. Not kidding. It's called skin-to-skin contact, and they charge you money to hold your own baby that you just gave birth to.
God, this country is going straight to hell. All of our international listeners are going to hear that and say, "What is wrong with y'all?"
Yeah.
And the answer is, we don't know.
But it's true. It's what they do. So it's a
Yeah.
whole racket.
Mhm.
It's always a fight. It's always a fight when it comes to health
Yes.
insurance.
Yes.
So yeah, the best thing you can do really is to avoid critters in the first place if you can. I'm sorry to put all my friends that are yearning to be bog witches and bohemian queens like out there, but put the cute fox down. I too would love to own a fox. But yeah, once symptoms have begun and it's in the central nervous system, all that can be done is end of life care, really. The patient's usually given supportive care with high doses of pain meds, sedatives, and breathing support. The disease is nearly 100% fatal, but with that preventative expensive care, with the vaccine, like even after exposure, it's almost 100% preventable. So if you can pay for it, I guess.
Hey, you get to live if you got the money.
Yeah. Now, well, and usually you get it and then you're charged later for it. So like you see people going into medical debt because not only are they charged for it, but after a while there's going to be interest too.
Yeah, ethically speaking, they don't deny care at the the time of service.
Like you will get it, but you're probably going to lose your house over it eventually. Not to be like extreme, but in some cases that has been the case.
You just might.
Yeah. Now, there is the Milwaukee Protocol, which has saved a few lives, though it's not always so effective. It was developed and named by Dr. Rodney Willoughby Jr. The first time it was used was on a young girl. Willoughby, yeah. On a young girl named, I think it's Jenna Geese, or Gianna Geese. This was in 2004 in Wisconsin. She was bitten by a bat that she rescued from her church in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Oof.
Wisconsin does cheese, right? Like all I see now is fondue. But it's like it looks French. Fond du Lac.
It's probably a French name. Yeah.
But anyway, she didn't seek medical attention when she did this. She had this encounter with this animal. 3 weeks later, she was rushed to Children's Wisconsin, where doctors confirmed she had rabies. She had had no prophylactic treatment prior to the showing of symptoms. So they tried this experimental idea involving the patient being intentionally put into a chemically induced coma and given just a bunch of antivirals and intensive care while the body just hopefully makes antibodies and starts to fight it off. So it's like giving Frodo a chance by going to the gates of Mordor.
There you
Except
go.
in this case, Frodo doesn't usually make it. I am sorry, Frodo. What are we waiting for? Anyway, yeah. So obviously this is a risky procedure and would not work if the brain were already affected enough. It really cannot be predicted if it might work or not, and it has been tried on others with no effect. So like I said, it doesn't always work. Details of the protocol have changed over time. Over the last 2 decades, no subsequent detailed reports have documented evidence of efficacy. There have been at least 64 cases with failure of the protocol where it didn't work. Likely critical care, which has been which has been used for over 50 years, is an important component of this aggressive approach. So now, it was successful in another case involving an 8-year-old girl in California, at least. You kind of see that these 2 people are young. They have no other health conditions. And honestly, it's just it's a miracle that they were actually able to, get through it. Now, Geese was the first to survive with this approach. She did have neurological complications requiring therapy, and she still does have some impairments, but her cognitive capabilities are intact, and she was actually able to go to college, get married, and become a mom later on. So she still I think some of her speech is still messed up, I think, a little bit. But so she had some complications after the fact, but she was able to live pretty much a normal life later. Other survivors with use of this method include 4 others in Peru and 1 each in Colombia, Brazil, Chile, and Ecuador. Yeah. There were also 5 documented survivors in India, and another where I read about that was reported, but I'm not sure if that case is real or not. But that's all. So It's unfortunately not a guaranteed cure or treatment, and it carries with it some serious risks like cardiorespiratory arrest, ventilator-associated pneumonia. Of course, if you're dying of rabies, I mean, they're going to try what they can. Now, as of now, India actually has the most annual cases of human rabies. They have about 20,000 cases per year. So yeah, it's still pretty rough.
Brother.
I did find a whole case study on the survivors from India, and it was pretty interesting. They looked at like 8 cases of rabies, mainly in children. 2 of those cases had received prophylactic vaccination, but it is believed that there were multiple exposures even after the fact, so they still ended up infected.
Wow.
Others who received the vaccines but not the immunoglobulin also ended up affected. Remember I said like sometimes without that dose of immunoglobulin with the shots, it can fail. All of these patients were managed in the intensive care unit with supportive care, including correction of like fluid and electrolyte imbalances, management of autonomic dysfunction, and anticonvulsants. 3 of these 8 patients succumbed after an average survival of about 6.3 months. So like I think one was 5, one was 6, and one was 8 months, which is actually a long time really when it comes to rabies. That was like after the onset of symptoms. So yeah. All 3 of them had severe neurological symptoms and were discharged from the hospital in pretty much a vegetative state in palliative care. 5 patients have survived thus far out of those 8 as of June 30th, 2018, that is. 2 of these 5 patients have severe neurological symptoms still, and 1 has like mild symptoms. All survivors have poor cognitive function after the fact. So the report that I read on these cases stated, sadly, all except 1 case had or continue to have moderate to severe neurological symptoms with poor functional outcomes. This is also true of most of the reported global human rabies survivors, and few have made a complete recovery, requiring potentially lifelong rehabilitation and care with long-term emotional and financial repercussions for family members.
Yeah.
So it's very unlikely that you will survive rabies if you get it and have symptoms without getting the shots or whatever. And even if you do, you will not be the same. Seriously though, a lot of people have there's that one girl who ended up being able to go to college and stuff, but that's honestly miraculous. That doesn't usually happen.
Yes, that is an outlier. Very impressive.
So it's rabies is a very serious disease and should be taken seriously. And if you will have contact with any sort of critter, that you don't usually have contact with, you need to get the expensive prophylactic treatments. So also it's been there is a theory out there that Edgar Allan Poe may have died from rabies.
You don't say.
It's a theory. There's one of many theories. The illness that he died from, there were quite a few symptoms that could have possibly been of rabies. So it's not proven, but interesting.
It's a good guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And he liked, I think he liked cats and stuff, which makes sense. He's got a whole story on
but it couldn't have been a raven because, as you've taught us, birds don't really suffer rabies.
No, but they do like to eat dead things. But they can't, they're not, like I said, they're not carriers of it or passers of it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, brilliant birds, though. Very smart. Now, this little guy can spread it. I mean, not him in particular because he's stuffy. But
yes.
And I think that's unfortunate because I've always thought it'd be great to have like bat houses. Like they're usually really tall anyway, and it's not like but they typically eat mosquitoes, which we have a lot of down here. So I love bats. It just sucks that they can also be carriers of rabies.
And I have seen some content creators who live in a neighborhood and there's an HOA that's always crawling right up their rear end about the stupidest stuff. And one good way to stick it to the HOA
is to install a bat house in your yard because they are federally protected.
Yeah, they can't take it down. It's not a bad idea if you've got because I mean, shoot,
I would love that.
Well, you've got mosquitoes that spread stuff too. They spread viruses, they spread malaria, West Nile, and all that other stuff. So it's not like, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of diseases out there and it really sucks. But here we are.
Yeah.
Just trying to live and function and, buy eggs and apparently rabies vaccines. So
that's right.
Yeah, but that's what I have for you on rabies. It's a pretty horrible, horrible illness, and definitely don't treat animal encounters like they're nothing.
Right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.
Don't approach the wildlife.
Bye-bye.
Bye.